Okay, so welcome back. Let's now continue looking at Yama's teachings to Nachiketas about what happens to your Atman after you die. Death will offer a number of analogies in order to understand this, but the most powerful and well developed one of these that I want to kind of focus on is an extended metaphor where the body, with the Atman inside of it, is compared to a chariot. This too is going to be reused actually by the Bhagavad Gita in a really clever way. Let's see how the Katha Upanishad, though, goes about it. Know the self as a rider in a chariot, says Yama, and the body as simply the chariot. Know the intellect as the charioteer, and the mind as simply the reins. In Sanskrit, the intellect is called the buddhi, and it's thought to be your faculty of reason through which you make decisions, conscious decisions. The mind is the manas, and this is where you have feelings and urges and impulses. Maybe it's better to think of it as your heart, actually, since that's where people generally point to when they're talking about their manas. It reacts to stimuli emotionally. It often forms snap instinctual judgments as opposed to rational ones. The senses, they say, are the horses, and the sense objects the paths around them. He who is linked to the body, the senses, and the mind, the wise proclaim as the one who enjoys. In other words, this one who is riding in the chariot, the one who enjoys all that the body provides, that's the Atman. Now he's going to give a bit more info on this body chariot metaphor and how it's supposed to work. When a man lacks understanding, his mind is never controlled. His senses do not obey him, just as bad horses don't obey the charioteer. But when a man has understanding and his mind is ever controlled, his senses do obey him as good horses obey their charioteer. Right, so in order to have your chariot, your body, go in the direction that you want it to go, you have to be able to rein in your senses, right? Pun intended. The part of you that has to do this is your intellect, the driver of the chariot, the buddhi, right? It has to keep the mind, the reins, fully under control. And that allows the senses to obey what your intellect wants them to do. Otherwise, the horses will just run at whatever attracts them or run away from whatever scares them, right? That's what happens to most of us, right? When we get really into something that we really like it, we really enjoy it, or when we feel really sad or scared, we can't make good decisions anymore. We can't study, we can't eat, we can't sleep. We fall victim to our senses. But maybe you're thinking, so what? Right? I kind of like losing control when I have good food or good music or good sex or in art or poetry and all that other good stuff, right? And so what if I get scared sometimes or hungry or sad? What's the harm in letting your horses run free? Yama's going to get to that next. When a man lacks understanding, is unmindful and always impure, he does not reach that final step, but gets on the round of rebirth. When a man has understanding, is mindful, and always pure, he does reach that final step from which he is not reborn again. Right? So the key to liberation from rebirth, in other words, is complete self-control and mindfulness, so that your chariot can go in the right direction and not just end up going around in circles. For when a mind is his reins, intellect his charioteer, he reaches the end of the road, that highest step of Vishnu. Now remember, in Vedic mythology, the god Vishnu takes 3 steps, and his 3rd step covers heaven, right? Here, that highest step of Vishnu is taken to mean liberation, being free from rebirth. Yama is going to explain it further. It has no sound or touch, no appearance, taste, or smell. It's without beginning or end, undecaying and eternal. When a man perceives it, fixed and beyond the immense, he is freed from the jaws of death. Not bad, right? Yama now is going to give a kind of coda for this lesson, explaining that even just hearing this story will be enough to lead a person to eternal life. Maybe for you as well. The wise man who hears or tells the tale of Nachiketas, an ancient tale told by death, will rejoice in Brahman's world. If a man, pure and devout, proclaims this great secret in a gathering of Brahmins or during a meal for the dead, it will lead him to eternal life. So there you have it, Yama's secret that he was trying so hard to keep, right? Ourselves, our Atman, is going to stay trapped in this mortal coil unless we can train our chariot drivers, our intellect, to maintain a firm grip on our emotions, our manas, right? And then to steer our senses, horses of our senses, along the right paths to get to the destination, that eternal Brahman. To do this, you have to realize actually one thing, that the rider in the chariot, the Atman, is not the driver, right? He's just riding along. The person who we usually think that we are is actually our intellect, our driver. But this is different from who we really are, which is the rider or the Atman. So now the rest of the Katha Upanishad, Yama actually stops talking, and you just get kind of the Upanishad in the third person that's talking. The author now asks us to turn our gaze towards that identity of that rider, that Atman. And if we can truly understand who this Atman is and experience its identity with Brahman, then our chariot has already reached its destination and the rider can just step out. Now let's see how these secrets are revealed. The self-existent one pierces the apertures outward, and therefore one looks out and not into oneself. A certain wise man in search of immortality turned his sight inward and saw the self within. Fools pursue outward desires and enter the trap of death spread wide. But the wise know what constitutes the immortal, and in unstable things here they do not seek the stable. So in other words, you have to seek this knowledge within yourself and don't chase outward desires, because what you'll find in there yourself will allow you to rise beyond grief. That by which one perceives both the states of sleep and of being awake, knowing that it's the immense, all-pervading self, a wise man does not grieve. When a man perceives close at hand this living, honey-eating self, the Lord of what was and what will be, it does not seek to hide from him. So indeed is that. And this declaration, so indeed is that, is going to be repeated over and over again in this section. And it's done to kind of indicate in a bold and powerful way the identity of the Atman, which you can't describe directly, with the Brahman, which you also can't describe directly, right? He who is born before heat, who is born before the waters, who is seen through living beings, entering the cave of the heart, one sees him abiding there. And check this part out. A person the size of a thumb resides within the body, the Lord of what was and what will be. From him he does not hide himself, so indeed is that. The person the size of a thumb is like a fire that's free of smoke, the Lord of what was and what will be, the same today and tomorrow, so indeed is that. Right? So then what happens to this little thumb guy when the body withers and dies? The out-breath he conducts upward, the in-breath he drives backwards. All the gods worship him, that dwarf, seated in the middle. When this embodied self, dwelling in the body, comes unglued and is freed from the body, what then here is left behind? So indeed is that. Not by the out-breath nor by the in-breath does any mortal live. By another do people live, on which these two depend. So now here comes the big secret of what happens to this thumb-sized dwarf, this Atman. Come, I'll tell you a secret, and the secret and eternal formulation of truth. what happens to that Atman, Gautama, when it encounters death. Some enter a womb by which an embodied self obtains a body. Others pass into a stationary thing. This is according to what they have done and according to what they have learned. So here we have, in a nutshell, this formulation of that new religious idea of karma and rebirth. Right? The Atman enters a new body, or enters a stationary thing, meaning the eternal Brahman, based on the karma of that person. Another thing, this Atman is the same thing as Brahman, the ultimate force that powers the universe. Right? This person creating every desire, who lies awake within those who sleep, that alone is pure. That is Brahman. That alone is called the immortal. On it all the worlds rest. Beyond it no one can ever pass. As the sun, the eye of the whole world, is not stained by visual faults that are external to it, so the single self within every being is not stained by the suffering of the world, being quite distinct from it. The one controller, the self within every being, who makes manifold his single appearance, the wise who can perceive him as abiding within themselves, they alone, not others, enjoy eternal happiness. The changeless among the changing, the intelligent among intelligent beings, the one who dispenses desires among the many, the wise who perceive him within themselves, they alone, not others, enjoy unending bliss. This is that, so they think, although the highest bliss can't be described. But how should I perceive it? Does it shine, or does it radiate? There the sun does not shine, nor the moon and stars. There lightning does not shine. Of this common fire need we speak. Him alone, as he shines, do all things reflect. This world radiates with his light. It's a very complex set of statements, but what we're seeing here is an internalization, I say, of spiritual activity. When you go inside yourself to find unending bliss by realizing your true nature, the true nature of your soul, your Atman. Right? So how do you go inside yourself to find this unending bliss? Let's take a quick break and we'll find